All right, guys. Welcome back to the Indie Sooner. It's your boy JP, and we got Trav back on the show. If you haven't seen, we announced that we're going to be doing this every Wednesday for the foreseeable future, just to give you guys some midweek Sooner action. So, Trav, welcome back, brother. How you doing?
Hey man, I'm doing great, man. I'm glad we're getting this going. I talk about OU football all day, every day, anyways. Much probably to the annoyance of the people that actually have to be around me at work all the time. So it's kind of nice, talking to people and actually having conversations with people who actually want to talk about OU football a lot. So it's kind of nice. So I'm looking forward to doing these each week, each Wednesday. So absolutely.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. And, obviously there are plenty of other Oklahoma shows and podcasts out there. And, I don't think either of us is going to try to say we are trying to be any of that. We're just honest guys that like to talk OU football. And, Wednesday's a good day. It's the middle of the week. People have calmed down off of their hot takes of the previous week, hopefully, at least. And then, moving forward, obviously we get to look into the next week a little bit. So again, if this is your first time joining us, just welcome, and we're excited to talk about a little bit of Oklahoma football, specifically, obviously this last week, and we'll get into what's ahead this week and maybe even some recruiting news. But Trav, where are you at, bro? Where you coming from?
I'm coming live from the Brick Brothers studios. Actually, I'm sitting in one of my restaurants right now. So I'm going to call it the Brick Brothers Studio, but it's really Brick Brothers Pizza in downtown Bixby. So old Jackson, someone hit me up. I put up a post of one of the pizzas I was cooking and that I was eating, and he was like, "Man, where's this at?" I was like, "Sorry, man, it's in Bixby." He's like, "Oh man," he's like, "You need to put some in Norman."
Yeah,
I'm working on it, buddy. So,
yeah.
but yeah, it's yep, here at the Brick Brothers Studios. So
Yes, sir. And if you guys are anybody that we know, anybody's in Tulsa, y'all make sure y'all go over there and close to Bixby as well. Go to Brick Brothers, go to Trey's Bar and Grill, and then, if you're feeling real fancy, go ahead and head over to the Cardinal Club.
absolutely,
Trav's gonna get you right, that's for sure.
absolutely.
Trav, we got somebody asking where's the bucket hat this week, brother?
Oh, that's a good call.
Look, y'all made him get up and go get it. Y'all made him get up and go get it.
There we are.
All right.
There we are. It's hard to put a hat on when you're mirrored screens. All right, there you go. There you
Yeah.
go, Jody. I'm back in the game.
Yes, sir. All right. Hey, so this is one of my best friends, John O'Pilla. So he's in the athletic department at ORU right now.
Oh, nice.
And so I've been telling him to try to get over, slide over to your place, and to connect with you. So hopefully we'll see.
Absolutely.
But I told you, good people. We went to the same college, and he ended up at ORU in the last couple of years, and so this is his second year there, I think, and he's over there in Tulsa. So I'm sure you'll hopefully be seeing him soon. But
Good, good. Well, yeah, man, come holler at me.
yeah, all right, guys. So we're gonna hop right into it. So obviously, as you guys know, Oklahoma defeated West Virginia 16-13 this last weekend, this last Saturday. And obviously, it was a primetime night game, something that we Sooner fans have been asking for years. After 11 a.m. kickoff, after 11 a.m. kickoff, and it seems like now we're starting to get some of those games. But I know on the Twitter sphere, a lot of Sooner fans were not happy with the team, specifically the offense, and how they have continued to look and struggle. And so I know even we talked about last week, right? Was Lincoln Riley going to open up the playbook again, and were we going to be able to score, over maybe that 30 threshold? And that didn't happen. So Trav, I wanted you to start us off and maybe give us some analysis on what you felt like went wrong this week.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I was duped like everybody else. When I gave my prediction, I was all about. I think it's been vanilla, and Lincoln's really going to open it up. I think he's been waiting for conference play. That's one thing. I feel like I can talk myself into any take almost, and I certainly talked myself into that one. But wasn't the case. And I think it's been. What's interesting is each day I feel like people get closer and closer as like to the actual nuts and bolts of what actually happened, right? Everybody's like, oh man, Spencer's got to go, this, that, and the other. They're chanting for Caleb. They're doing this, that. And then, halfway through the week, everybody's like, wait a minute, it was the offensive line the whole time?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the offensive line the whole time. So then it's kind of interesting as the narrative changes throughout the week. That's why I like doing these on Wednesdays, is you kind of give people a chance to calm down, which is nice.
Yeah.
So we don't have a bunch of, if we did this immediately post game, man, our comments would be filled with fire this guy, bench that guy, whatever, But that's why I'm glad we get a little more level headed in the middle of the week. But yeah, I think the unfortunate part about the game was the defense's effort is really going to go overlooked, because people are going to remember this as, oh, it's the chant game, it's where we only scored 16 points. I mean, if I'd have told somebody in 2018, hey, we're only going to score 16 points, at home in a night game against a conference opponent, they would have thought we got blown out. Not just lost, they'd have thought we got blown out.
Yep.
So the fact that we're able to win games while scoring 16 points is incredible, the incredible difference. And I'm not saying that West Virginia, is Alabama by any means on the offensive side of the ball. But it can't be understated how well the defense played, kept everything in front of them. I think we gave up, 266 yards, somewhere around there. I mean, that is fantastic. I know everybody kept on saying, oh, man, that big number 0 keeps on getting open across the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they were giving that up. They were giving it up. They were playing zone coverage. They were giving it up. We did get lucky a few times. I would say we escaped a few ones when you overcooked that pass into the back of the end zone.
Yeah.
To a wide open tight end. That was ugly. And I think with Alex Grinch's reaction to Key Lawrence walking off the field, I think we know who screwed that coverage up. So, but things like that. I mean, yeah, it certainly was nice that we got a great face mask to move us down the field on the last series. It's great that they snapped the ball 30 yards behind their quarterback on their, most important series, that kind of stuff. We were certainly fortunate to get out of there with a win. But at the same time, I think Lincoln Riley's teams the stats say Lincoln Riley's teams struggle at the beginning of the year, and then they just kind of work things out, and we're a completely different team at Texas, after Texas, and especially in November. So, but we're 4-0.
Yeah, we're 4-0, and I agree completely. And I'm gonna respond to this comment by Richard. If you were to choose a lineup for the offensive line, how would you configure it? He's looking at Morris, Walker, Rain, Murray, and Robinson or Swinton. Curious on our thoughts, and so I'll start, and then Trav, you can dive in if you have any additional thoughts on the offensive line. Obviously, I think everybody, now that we have stepped back, and we'll talk about the booing, we're going to get there, right? But now that we've stepped back, I think people know, hey, it's not all on Spencer. When you look at the film, if you've had a chance to rewatch the game, have a chance to, if there is 22 film out there, which if you haven't subscribed to Keegan, I don't know how you say his last name. Is it Raynow? You know what I'm talking
about? I've heard him say it multiple times, but Raynow.
He does a great job at breaking some of these things down.
I doubt a big time journalist like him, any of the OU media guys are watching us right now, but he's Big J journalist.
He is.
He's Big J. He does a good job.
He's Big J. Yeah, he does a great job. $5 a month, and he does all 22 film breakdown most of the time of our games, and so it's really good stuff if you guys haven't gotten an opportunity. But I was watching some of that this week, and even listening to Teddy and Gabe's show that they do, their podcast that they do, that's really great as well, the Oklahoma Breakdown. And I mean, Gabe was fired up. I mean, he doesn't cuss a lot. I mean, he cusses occasionally, but he really doesn't, use the F-bomb, because that's not obviously seen as professional. He dropped it twice when discussing the offensive line's play. Obviously, he specifically pointed out Anton Harrison and just his lethargicness for whatever reason. He pointed out Marquise Hayes, who everybody thought was going to be a monster coming in this year. And Teddy said, is it that he's missing his other half, Creed Humphrey, who's in Kansas City, balling out right now? May I say he's only allowed, one pressure the whole year?
No, he's been incredible.
PFF came out with that. So, when you're missing a guy like that, I think maybe it's showing how much Creed meant to the offensive line. And so you have a brand new center, a freshman, redshirt freshman Andrew Rain that's in there. And obviously Congo was in there too. He may be a little bit further along, but he's not as physically gifted. And so it's like, well, what do you do? What do you go with? And the comment that was made was they just seem like they don't know what they're doing. They seem like they don't know where they're going. And it's especially concerning for guys like Marquise Hayes and Tyrese Robinson, who should know that stuff because this is their third year. And Gabe was like, "Yo, you guys can say it's Beating Bow, or you can call for Beating Bow's head." He was like, "I know one thing. I played for that man. I know how thorough he is. I know that it's not him, right?" And so at some point, these guys got to come up and play. So to get back to the original question, sorry for going down the rabbit hole. I probably would stick with the same group. I may try to put Wanya out there. I think when Wanya was out there, he did a little bit better than what Anton did. I've heard maybe putting Swinson in, not for Hayes, but who started at right guard for us? Murray.
Chris Murray, yeah.
Because Murray's just a little bit limited physically. Obviously, he got some natural talents as far as his IQ and when he gets there, but he's kind of short armed, and he had a hard time dealing with the West Virginia defenders who were just ferocious and specifically defensive line long arm guys, and so had a hard time a little bit there. But that's what I would say, and I trust Bill to figure it out. Like you said, it's always like this the first couple of games, trying to find that cohesion, and it's tough in a year where you're missing a Creed Humphrey specifically.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of along the same lines as far as Wanye. I'd like to see Wanye out left. I mean, and then I'd like to see Bray Walker at left guard. They're five stars for a reason. Wanye was a 5-star for a reason. Bray Walker was 5-star for a reason. Like, get him out there. And the last thing that I'm qualified to do, I'm severely underqualified at a lot of things. Grading and coming up with offensive line combinations is probably one of them. Mainly because I talked to Bill at Lincoln's house after that game, and he actually got frustrated. He's like, "You got all these, journalists and whatnot, or whatever, that have the audacity to put grades on my offensive linemen when they don't know how to grade offensive lines. They don't know what they're looking at." And he was getting pretty frustrated about it. And I was like, man, you just get you get these guys that maybe watch football, and I don't want to come across, love the guy, but I don't want to come across all JD Runnels and say, if you didn't play football, you are not allowed to talk about football. Mm-hmm. But I mean, he was decently fired up. And this was after the Nebraska game, and he was like, "Well, we gave up like no sacks or one sack, whichever, 0 or 1 sack, and had like 2 like hits all game." So he's like, "We must have done something right." So anyways, but he was talking about grading offensive line. So I think all of my recommendations, we've got to take through that vein of, I will put reasons behind all my selections.
Yeah.
But those are just my opinions. It's not like I'm like, Beatonbow's just an idiot. I don't know why he's not playing. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, I have the utmost respect for Coach B. So, but I'd play Wanya out left tackle, left guard up at Bray Walker. And then center, I still think you just got to stick with Andrew Rain.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to develop that position.
Higher ceiling.
And yeah, he's got a great ceiling. And I think we're seeing over and over how important Creed was to that line. But I also think I keep Chris Murray in there because I think the line needs a little bit more of that nastiness, and I think he's the one that can bring that. I think we got so used to, we all saw the Texas film over and over. It was a beautiful thing to watch, of them just embarrassing Breckenhager and making it personal and just going after him and putting him in the ground and putting him in the ground, putting him in the ground. And they knocked him off of Twitter. He disappeared. So he's in witness protection somewhere, hoping he doesn't run into any offensive lineman from that game.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. I think Chris Murray, you saw a couple times where if he gets his hands on you, he's going to drive you. He's going to punch you. You're going to feel him. It's not it's not that he's going to just sit back and back up in some pass protection. If he gets close enough to put his arms on you and extend out and actually knock you over, I mean, he was knocking guys. And I mean, I saw one of the plays. He's backing up. He didn't have anybody to block. Guy comes off of I think it was Rame. Comes off of Rame and he just plants him. And like stuff like that, we got used to seeing that over the last few years. So seeing that from him, I think you need that on the line. Outright, I mean, you could go with Ren, you could go with Tyrese, you could go with I don't know what the right answer is but no pun intended. I don't know what the right answer is at right tackle, but that's where I would go with on the four leftmost positions to answer that question to the best of my ability.
Yeah,
I'll be enjoying some cabin boys.
I mean, I agree with you, Trav. I think that at the end of the day, and even some of these chat comments that are in the chat, I know Richard here says if they're all equally experienced, in my opinion, start the dudes with the high ceiling. And I think at this point, obviously it may not be able to hurt, but I'm trusting Bill Bedenbaugh. I know what he's put out. If there's one guy, 1A and 1B, it's Lincoln Riley and then Bill Bedenbaugh right there that I'm not going to really worry about. And obviously, I know people want to get up in arms. Like you said, we're 4-0.
It's also a situation where it's blocking from the whole team. It's not just an offensive line issue. I mean, the running backs are getting blown up. That's one thing. Ramondre was great at run blocking. I mean, we've got the big bodies. We've got Jeremiah Hall and Mike Willis that can get in there and block. But I mean, a lot of people isolated the throw that was out to the left when Mike Woods was open to the right, and I think he was throwing to Jaden out left. Everybody's like, why didn't he throw that ball more accurately? Why didn't he do this? He's like, the running back got blown up right in front of him. I mean, what are you going to do whenever you got a linebacker in your lap and you're expected to make an accurate throw downfield? Like, so these things, blocking, it seems to be a whole team issue. And I had noticed this early in the season. It seems like some of the receivers, because Spencer, he's not dual threat, but he's mobile enough to get outside the pocket and throw on the run. So, but what I'm seeing sometimes is you'll get outside the pocket, and the receivers don't know if they're supposed to get separation or if they need to block or if they need to come back to the football like they should. Like, you're not seeing a lot of that. So I think that's part of my concern is it seems to be across the whole team, not understanding. And part of that's communication. That's how routes get rung the wrong way, miscommunication, things like that. So it's like, if that's not getting done, who does that necessarily fall on, right? It's like the running backs are getting blown up. Wide receivers not sure if they're supposed to block or if they're supposed to go. I do think we're having a tough time. It's going to sound really weird. I think we're having a tough time finding out who we need on the field as far as our wide receivers go. When you see it all game, and you saw it early with the defense early in the season, all game you've got Mike Woods and Drake Stoops and Jaden Hazelwood, Marvin Mims, and then you're busting out Eric Gray out of the backfield. You got Mario Williams. Hopefully Cody Jackson comes back soon. There's guys, and you're like, we have so many people. We're running out Braden Willis on routes. We're running Jeremiah Hall out on routes. I'm wondering if we're struggling to find our groove and our chemistry because we have so many mouths to feed. And it seems weird because you think about this team and you're like, well, it doesn't feel like we're like way more talented in the receiver room this year because we've got Theo Wees out, Trey's just kicked off the team, like all that. Like, you can't imagine like, oh, we have so much talent we can't figure out what to do with it. But what I think is it's interesting because in years past it's like, okay, you had Hollywood and CD. Like, yeah, we had a lot of other receivers on those teams, but it was those two were on the field. Like big plays, you got CD on the field, you got Hollywood on the field. And I don't know if we found, and I'm not saying that we have the equivalent on the team right now. We probably do in some way or another. We have plenty of talent, but that would be my question is, who are our receivers that are going to be playing every third down? Do we have that?
Yeah.
We don't have that. but is it a situation where more isn't always better, or maybe there's just different? Are there egos in that room? Is it a situation where, like, man, Marvin was All-American last year, and he's like, and his dad's, on Twitter, asking about or talking about targets and whatnot? Is there like well, I want more targets. I was an All-American last year and lit the world on fire. Mike Woods is like, well, I transferred in, and he had a great game last game. It's like, well, I transferred in. Jaden Hazelwood's like, hey, I'm finally back from injury. I'm bigger and stronger than every corner that's out there. Just throw me the damn ball. Yeah. I mean, and then, Drake produces, and you got all this. It's just Mario. Everybody's like, all right, we got to get anything we can do to get the ball in Mario Williams' hands. So I think it's interesting. The relationships and the chemistry in the group just seem to be way off compared to former years where we had an obvious top one or two receivers.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that is it's a good problem to have, but you're right. It's tough with how many talented receivers we have, and obviously that's not going anywhere anytime soon. And we'll make that segue into a little bit of recruiting. Obviously, last Friday we found out that DeAndre Moore committed to the University of Oklahoma, which we're stoked about. And that's now him, Brandon Ennis, Malachi. What? No, that's Malachi Nelson. I'm tripping. Makai Lemon. Their names are so close together, and obviously they're on the same team. Makai Lemon has 3 5-star receivers now that are a part of that 2023 seniors class. And so quite a segue into recruiting. I know one thing that we wanted to get to, and this is kind of does both. Obviously, we got to talk about the booing. We got to talk about what happened when, whether it was a student section or whether it was everybody, and you were at the game, correct, Trav?
Yep.
And so, you'll be able to speak to that specifically on if that was true or not. And if you heard anything or have heard anything of how it affected recruiting. I'll give really quick just my opinion on the booing. Again, I think that it's just unbecoming of what we would expect of Oklahoma fans. I know we're passionate, but again, casual fans have just no idea what's going on down there, and you have visceral reactions. And at the end of the day, it just doesn't set up a team for success. It doesn't set up recruiting for success, at least you would think. And we'll get into that, and we'll see actually how it did or didn't affect it. But the nice thing, I will say, not that's come out of it, because I don't want it to continue to happen, but it does seem like the guys have Spencer's back. And like there's some big camaraderie there, which you can point to as a positive, and maybe it's a galvanizing point, but you don't really want a galvanizing point to be your fans booing the starting quarterback who, for all of his struggles, is still completing over 70% of his passes. Still, I believe, has a 4-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. And it's 4-0 despite the struggles of the offensive line. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I mean, I think if the season ended today, I think he would have the highest completion percentage for a season in OU history. And you got to give him credit for the way he finished that game. It would have been very easy for him to fold and be like, man, this is bullshit. They're calling for my backup. They're this, that, and the other. But I mean, he finishes the game on fire. I think he completes last 15 of his last 16, 9 for 9, 9 of his last 9, and marched us down the field and won the game. So a lesser quarterback would not have been able to get that done. Obviously, they were given different defensive looks during that, but at the same time, you got to, even if it's on air, you got to complete the passes. So I think as far as I think it is a chip on shoulder type motivation. You remember Michael Jordan, in The Last Dance, he used to make up stuff to motivate him, just stuff that never even happened. Yeah. He would make it up to motivate him, and if this whole Oklahoma versus the world, this is about as Oklahoma versus the world as it gets in that locker room.
Yeah,
because every one of them. I mean, and I don't say this to flex or whatever, but I mean, I talked to a decent amount of the players, and I even there were 1 or 2 of them this week that were like, "Nah, you're a fan." I was like, "Man, brutal." I was like, "Man, I've been talking to you for a while." So it's interesting how that locker room is really insulated, when it comes to now any fans' opinions and whatnot. So I don't know. It's certainly interesting. I think it's a hell of a time to happen going into Kansas State. I think that team is going to be playing with their hair on fire with something to prove, as if they needed any more motivation to go play Kansas State. But I do think an away game is welcome at this point. You know, they don't have to host the recruits. They don't have to. They don't have to be in front of the home crowd. And I know 99% of us were fine in the stadium. We're 100% supportive. But if you don't have to worry about that on the road, you're kind of already in that, you know, us against them mentality, us against the world mentality when you're on the road. But as far as recruiting goes, with that specific, how does this affect recruiting? I think it matters entirely your relationship with those recruits. You have to keep in mind, these coaches have been, by the time you make your official visit, you've known these coaches for a long time. Mm-hmm. You've been talking with these coaches. Maybe you text them daily. Maybe you're on phone calls with them. You know them. You know the program. You're getting to know the program. But it's just going through all the official stuff together, all the tours, having those one-on-one conversations with your parents and all that kind of stuff. So with that, I think it's important. Any situation can be spun. So I had said this earlier today. Florida State is 0-4. To the outside world, man, that's a dumpster fire. Who would go to Florida State right now? Because we're obviously competing for Marvin Jones Jr., one of the top rush ends in the country. He was in town for the game. Him and Derek Moore really hit it off. But you know, Florida State is sitting there going, "We're 0-4, man. But if we had more players like you, man, you could be the face of turning your father's alma mater around back to the glory days. You could be the face of this. You know, this is the reason we are 0-4 is because we can't get players like you through the door. You know, you could lead this movement of South Florida prospects coming back to Florida State and keeping Florida talent in Florida. Now, it all depends on the relationship with Marvin, whether that resonates with him or not. Same thing it does with the booing. If I'm an Oklahoma coach and I'm talking to Marvin Jones Jr. or Levius Overton or any of the guys that were in the stadium, I know Levius Overton left at halftime, so he wasn't there for the boos. But, you know, I'm saying, hey, look, we got a high standard here. You know, we play for championships around here. This isn't, you know, Florida State. You know, this isn't Miami. This isn't, you know, wherever, right? We play for championships here. So our fans know that. Yeah. So if we're not performing at a level they are accustomed to, and that the reputation that we have built ourselves, this would be different. Nobody in 1995, you never would have been booing, calling for the backup because our standards were not what they are now. So that's the thing. That's a sign of usually a healthy program. When you're winning, and people are saying, "Oh man, something's got to change. This is ridiculous." So the fact that that's what I would say to recruits, and I'm sure that's along the lines of what they were saying. So I think that's a thing where it depends on the relationship with the recruiter that they already have, that they've been building this whole time. Yeah. So I don't think, like I said, there's a ton of ways to spin it. Also, every coach that's negatively recruiting against us will say, "Oh man, Spencer Rattler, they wanted him there, didn't they? Man, they were happy when he committed. He's a 5-star kid, and now they're booing him." That could be you. You want to get booed by 85,000 people, even though it was more like 85 people that were saying it. Correct. That's the thing. So it all depends on the substance, and I don't think something like drunk people in the student section is providing a lot of substance that's negative for the program.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree completely. Yeah, I think that, like you said, at the end of the day, a lot of these kids have had a relationship with these coaches for years. And, you know, I think we got to trust, especially based off of, you know, what we even talked about last week, which if you guys didn't see, the live stream from last week is still up on the Indy Sooner YouTube channel. But, you know, Trav, you were just talking about how great Lincoln is at the relationship aspect, and that he's probably one of the best, if not the best in the nation at it. And so I think, obviously, while we don't necessarily want that, we do have to kind of take a step back and realize, hey, you know, Lincoln's invested in these guys. And I think he's going to be able to And even honestly, if you look at the way he's handled it in the press and how Spencer's even handled it in the press, they're very, like you said, we're focused on what's going on internally in here. They're fans. They can say what they want to say.
And I think there's not a single person that, like, I don't think there's a single reasonable person that would be like, oh man, yeah, that's how OU fans are, man. They just get out there and boo you. The fact that it is national news, the fact that everybody's talking about it, means that it doesn't happen often.
Yep.
That's a thing. If it were just this weekly thing of, booing the team again down in Norman. Oh, OU's got a home game. Boo birds are going to come out.
Yeah.
Like, it wouldn't be a story, but it's a story because it never happens. So, and I think, with recruits and whatnot, they're all talking about, oh man, we got to go to Lincoln's house, we got to hang out, we got to, meet the family. My family got to meet him. We got to do it. Like, nobody's like, oh man, those drunk students that were all the way across the field and up from us really just told me all I needed to know about the whole university, which obviously is not the case.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree, and I think we'll be fine. Nothing to worry about. And so, just a couple comments I know that I want to get to before we move on to our Kansas.
Yeah, for sure.
I
love the comments. You guys just comment away, ask questions, talk.
Yeah. Go people, just talking points people have had. I know Sean's been very active in the chat. Thank you, Sean. Just talking a lot. He said he think we land all three of those guys. Obviously. I know we got a crystal ball for, I believe, McClellan not that long ago. We also got a crystal ball for Gentry from Steve Wilfong, a Wilfong ball, but it was only a one confidence, so I'm not entirely sure about that. And Gabriel Dindy, obviously, as everybody knows, is a legacy, so we're trying to potentially get him back as well. Trav, you have any comments on that?
I agree completely that we get all three of them.
Yeah.
I think we're seeing a nice movement of 918 kids that are coming to Tulsa. I think Lincoln did an incredible job when they all took their visit. They were all up there. A ton of, Micah Tees, Gentry Williams. I think Chris was up there with RSJ, who's been a fantastic recruiter for us. Robert Spears Jennings, awesome kid.
Yeah.
I've got to talk with him a little bit. He's a great kid. You get those guys, and they are very, you did a great job of letting them know, hey, you 918 kids, you Oklahoma Preps kids, that's when we're at our best. Is you guys got to stay home. We want you guys to play for State Pride. That's what was so cool about the recruiting videos when they were draped in the Oklahoma flag. They also did it with the California kids. They did it with the Florida kids. They did it with all that draped in the flag, and it was very cool. And I think that at the end of the day, that helps us. I think Gentry. I think the USC situation is volatile at best. I think them getting their butts kicked by Oregon State was not necessarily good for them. And when you look, their main recruiter or their interim coach is the main recruiter for Gentry. Well, if you look at any, Vegas usually knows what they're talking about. If you look at any Vegas, book, he's not a candidate for the job long term. So that's an issue for Gentry, right? Because if a new coach comes on, who's to say he's going to keep any of the staff? You know what I mean? So at that time, it's like I think Gentry's there, which I think helps with Chris a ton. Yep. Chris loved his visit. And Dindy, man, it's one of those. I think he's always kind of been coming to us. I've always felt good about him, even with the job in College Station that his dad's getting. I still feel confident. I still don't know if he does a full blown official visit to Texas A&M, because I know they're going to be there for this church conference for his dad, but that's why they're going to be in College Station. It's not for the visit. So I know they'd like to probably do both, but Texas A&M isn't the priority to get that visit done, which should be very,
good news for OU fans to know that they're going to be there and the A&M visit isn't a priority. Now, if they do end up taking the full visit, we'll see what A&M can do.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's any secret, and I've heard this from recruits' parents, that that A&M is offering cash. So Dindy's just not going to take that. I mean, they're an extremely religious family. They're not the ones where you'd be like, hey,
yeah,
you want some cash?
Yeah. No, I mean, like you said, man, it's just we're on a roll right now. Especially when it comes to the end of the 2022 class and the 2023, and I've had Texas fans in my comments saying, "Did Lincoln forget about the 2022 class?" I've just been quiet. Y'all just
we
wait.
could still finish with the top 5 class. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I was like, I'm just going. Y'all just wait on it. It's okay. You can wait on it. Like Coach Manning says, wait on it, right? So yeah, absolutely. And again, going back to our original kind of segment on is the booing going to affect it? I think that the last couple of days and what we've heard in the last couple of days, and if you're on OU Insider and you see some of that stuff, where obviously if you're connected like Trav is, then you see that it's really not a big deal, and that's what some people even in the chat are saying, and it's overblown by the national media, by other people, and it is. So just for
we're
anybody,
a big brand, so people are going to talk about us. We're a big brand.
Yeah, it's natural.
If there's booze at Mississippi State, or if there's booze at Georgia Tech, or if there was there probably was.
Yeah.
There probably was. We'll never know about it.
Yeah. Yeah. You're absolutely right.
Do you honestly think if there were booze at Kentucky this week, we would have heard about it?
No, not at all. Like you said, we're brand. People like to talk about Oklahoma, whether it's
we're a top 3 program, top 4 program of all time.
Yep.
And people treat us like it, which is good. I want to be in the news when that kind of stuff happens. It means people we're still a big story. The day we're not in the news about that stuff, we need to worry.
We're relevant. Staying that way. So, yeah. And, again, we're sitting number 1, 2023. Every
by
bit
a mile
that can stay that way. So,
by a mile.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fun, man. And we're going to keep it rolling here. But there's a lot of questions in the chat, and the guys, please keep asking, and I'm going to get to them when we get to our Q&A time here in just a little bit. We're going to keep this thing rolling. So obviously we're going to talk about the big question that everybody has, or just the big thing that's on everybody's mind, I'm sure, heading into this weekend is, can Oklahoma finally beat Chris Kleiman and the Kansas State Wildcats? As you see on the tickets, Kansas State in the last 2 years. Then I don't even know. That doesn't even make sense now I think about it, how I put that. They're 0-2 in the last 2 years. I guess they could have played them in the championship game. So I'll let myself slide on that one, but kind of a funky way to ask that question. Anyways, I think that Oklahoma's got to be ready for this game, Trav. They got to be ready for it. I mean, after everything that has happened the last 2 years, the first year we just get in there, we get absolutely smacked just across the face initially, and we almost come back and win the game, right? And then last year we're smacking them, and we let them back in the game, a la Tulane, except we didn't lose the Tulane game this year. But it was
Well, and I think that's the difference in this team.
Yeah,
is we don't lose in 2017, 2018. If we were put in the positions that we put ourselves in these first few weeks of the season, we're not 4-0. We're simply not. So that's encouraging, to say the least. But I do think it's a situation where it's every intangible that you can muster is going in our favor. I mean, just got done booing our starting quarterback The whole team's running behind him. It's his birthday this week. Like everything's in that. It's in the national spotlight that he needs to play better. Offensive line needs to play better.
Yeah.
You've gone 0-2 the last 2 years. And as you so eloquently put, 0-2 the last 2 years. And you cannot lose again to Kansas State.
Yeah.
You're away. You're on the road. You're out of your element. You're already in a Oklahoma versus the world mentality. And now you're actually doing it by going on the road.
Yeah.
Lincoln is traditionally we're a fantastic program on the road in general.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of thing when you look at just those factors, that's important. And the biggest factor, we'll see if it's true. But if Skylar Thompson doesn't play, that is huge. I mean, that's the biggest question mark we're waiting on right now was Kleiman being honest in his interviews saying, oh, I don't think he's going to go? Or was it a bit of gamesmanship and saying, oh, no, we know this team has had such troubles with Skylar Thompson that we're not going to tell him about him. And then you're going to find out the day of the game that he's going to try and go, and then he goes. So he was dropping back in pregame last week. He was doing 5-step drops and 7-step drops and doing stuff in warmups. But I don't know if nuts on the table. I say he plays, but he's not going to be at 100%.
Yeah, and for whatever reason, and Oklahoma's defense has had a penchant of this making this of quarterbacks that maybe aren't as good or we don't see as good against other teams. For whatever reason, Skylar Thompson, he's not bad, but he's very average. It has been average, but the last 2 years when he's played us, he's balled out. And so, you got to think Alex Grinch is ready for the dual threat potential of Skylar Thompson. But like you said, if he's not at 100%, you really don't have to – I don't want to say don't worry about it, but it's not as much of a factor. And I think what's encouraging defensively is seeing how we handled Adrian Martinez against Nebraska, because I think he's somebody you can compare to a Skylar Thompson. Maybe Skylar Thompson has a little better arm, but they're kind of the same player, like to take off and run a lot. I saw a stat earlier today that says Skylar Thompson against Oklahoma has had, I think, either 1 or 2 passing touchdowns and 8 rushing touchdowns. And so obviously they're a team that likes to run a lot. They like to get downhill, and they'll use that play action. And so again, we've seen it now 2 years with Chris Kleiman. I think Alex Grinch has to be ready for it and prepared. And that's one thing I have that I wanted to talk about. And it doesn't necessarily have to do with last weekend or not, but maybe moving forward as we get into deeper in the conference stretch. Do you have a problem, Trav, with Alex Grinch rotating as many guys as he has? I know I've seen some chatter about why on specific down and distances or why on specific times in a game that may be seen as important are guys like Nick Benito, Perion Winfrey, Isaiah Thomas on the sideline and not in the game. And obviously, from my perspective, I think you can say, well, obviously, Grinch has been very forthcoming of, if you're able to have fresh guys in there, and if you don't have too much of a drop-off, that's ideal rather than having even your best guys in there. If they're at a less percentage than they would be because they're tired, is there a give and take with that? And I can see that. But then there's also the guys that are going to be like, well, I take Nick Benito at 60%, even if he's super duper tired, over Marcus Stripling, who, again, not to knock on Marcus Stripling, he's great, but he's not Nick Benito, right? And so that's maybe a question that I had. I wanted us to kind of chat about. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think your starters are your starters for a reason. And, if you go across other sports, I know all sports demand different things, but it's a situation where you're like, why in Brooklyn, why does KD and Kyrie Irving and James Harden play so many minutes and they don't just have equal numbers across? How come they don't have equal minutes across the board? How come starters in any sport exist? How come, your starting pitchers, don't have the same as your relief? Well, you want a fresh arm in there, don't you?
Yeah.
So I think that's a situation. Like, there's a reason these guys are starters, and I do think part of it is developing that, developing that depth. Like, I totally get that.
Yeah.
But man, there's been multiple times where I look down and I'm like, and it seems like they're in almost like platoon type situations. Like, you don't see, like, at least I have not noticed it as much. Somebody could correct me, I guess, but I feel like Benito, Thomas, and Perrion specifically are always on the field together.
Yeah.
And then when they sub out, the whole second string comes in. You know what I mean? I'm like, it's not just, big play. All right, let's get somebody fresh in there for IT or something like that. Like, it's like we're getting the whole line out of there.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting. I don't expect it again to continue the rest of the season. Like, I don't think we're rotating nearly as many players against Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, I think that's kind of what we're gearing up for. But it's, I personally think that they should rotate less. I think we should be able to get ahead of teams early, lean on our fresh legs late. Because I mean, what's really the difference, right?
Yeah.
What's the difference between having like marginally fresh legs for everybody in the fourth quarter?
Yep.
Because if you're still playing your second string and third string throughout the first, second, and third quarter, they're not going to be as fresh as if they just come in fresh, right? So, like, if you really front load your starters in the first and second quarter, midway through third, and then you start rotating out heavily, now they've really got fresh legs.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's a drastic difference. So, like, if you think of it like, a battery, right? Like, all right, after one series, Perrion, those guys, the starters, I'll just call them the starters. After one series, it goes down to 95%. So now you got 95% of Perrion and Nick and all these guys over a backup.
Yeah.
And then on the next series, you got maybe it goes down a little bit, 92%, whatever. Well, then instead of going 95 and then you put in backups. So then on the third series, they're 92%. Well, then they're 90 on the third percent or on the third drive. Well, then once you get in that third quarter, after the rest of at halftime, or something like that,
Right.
then put in Ethan Downs and put in Stripling and put in all those guys, Kelvin Gilliam and Ellison and all these guys. You put them all in. Now they're at 100%. Like, maybe they've played a few downs. Obviously, I don't want to just burn out the big guys, but they should be at least 95%. That's a much bigger jump than consistently dealing with, all right, I've got a 98% rested starter and then a 98% rested backup and then a 95%. You know what I mean? Like, I don't see the need to stair step both units all the way down, because then when you talk about, I want them to be fresh in the fourth quarter, like, are they? Like, are they really fresh, or are they just not as dog tired as if they would have played 50 snaps? So I think it's 6 one way, half a dozen another. It's like the old Seinfeld joke. It's like he's like the medicine. He's like, I found like this headache medication or whatever, and it's like fast acting or long lasting. Right. He's looking at him. He's like, fast acting or long lasting? Do I want to feel good now, or do I want to feel good later? So, I mean, you could argue both schools of thought, where you could just say, hey, we're going to be marginally stair-stepping down the freshness of both units, but they're going to go down less, so hopefully we can get out and get a lead. Or you run the starters down. Once you start to see kinks in the armor, then you're like, all right, second string, come on, let's spell some of these guys with some time off. So, I don't know. It's one of those things, and I hate to constantly just use this as my disclaimer, but I trust Alex Grinch to do the right thing. He's got the job for a reason. Yeah. But I do think that that's where the school of thought comes from, is which do you want to do? Do you want to knock down your starters, freshness, if you will, and then put in fresh, like 100% fresh, 2 and 3s? or do you just want to play them all the time? Because if you want to play them all the time, then why even have starters, right? Like if you got Adrian Martinez on a 4th and goal at the goal line stand, and you pull all your starters out, are you just trying to give confidence to the backups because the backups got ran over? He scored, so it's like, is that doing well? Is that so?
Yeah,
I don't know. I wonder if somebody phrased a question like that to Alex.
how he would answer it.
Alex's answers are so smart, anyways. I mean, you can tell that he's just in his press conferences. He's, he talks quick, but he's still. You can see in his mind. You can see in his eyes, I should say, that he's trying to dumb it down to be consumable.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I talk to Pat a lot. That's what Pat says about him. That's what Boogie always said about him. It's like the dude's just brilliant. So there's a method to his madness for sure. I just kind of want him to tell us what it is so we can stop. So we can stop, asking about it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree, man. It's at the end of the day, our defense really is what's kept this. I don't want to say kept the season alive, but honestly, what has made us and what made us a national championship contender in so many people's eyes was the consistency that was Lincoln Riley and the Sooner offense that it has been, right? Because the narrative was always we didn't have a defense. And so going into this third year of Alex Grinch, you're like, defense has to be better. And really they have been. I mean, besides the second half of Tulane where they really just a lot of people just gave up. It wasn't that it was a skill level issue or a schematic issue. It was an effort issue. And that was across the board. And we talked about that, but the Nebraska game, obviously Western Carolina is a watch. That's Western Carolina, but the Nebraska game, West Virginia game, like they did well. And you have your lucky bounces from here and there, but for the most part, the defense has been everything that you could ask for. And we never, me and my wife had this conversation. I said, we never necessarily came in here and asked Alex Grinch to give us a top 5, even a top 10 defense.
Yeah.
He said,
people were asking,
before the year, top 30 defense.
Yeah, they're like, hey, if we get a top 40, because everybody would start wondering, with this offense, can you have a top 10 defense? Can you have a top 15 defense if you're giving so many possessions back because you're scoring so quick?
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting, all these OU fans that, offense writes the narrative, right? If we had won these first couple games 51-45, 50, 45-38, people are like, man, we're kicking ass. Defense needs to improve, but our offense we can still outscore everybody. So, but that it's like they say, history is written by the written by the winners. I feel like all of sports journalism is written by the offense, like from an offensive lens. So it's like, man, what's wrong with the Sooners? I don't know, man. They're 4-0.
Yeah.
And they just held West Virginia to 13 points when they couldn't get it done on their offensive side, and 266 yards, and like just played well against them. The defense did. So I just think that people aren't used to seeing wins like this.
Yep.
But there's still wins. Like if you win every game on your schedule, but you don't beat anybody by over 2 touchdowns, you still beat everybody on your schedule.
Yep.
Like this isn't like style points. Like there's not a BCS model that's going to be like, oh, you didn't win by 45 a game. So it's just interesting. It's just an interesting change, and I don't think we were really expecting it. But I'll tell you what, I bet some of the defensive players are loving it. They're like, hey, they're walking by some receivers, in the hallway going, hey, you're welcome.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Now let's move to the other side of the ball when we're talking about Kansas State. Offensively, we really haven't had issues with them the last 2 years necessarily. Now we've hit points where we've stalled. Obviously, the first game, like I said, it was early, and then we finally started to get some stuff going late. And then last year, we were scoring early, and then we hit some stalls late. And so with our struggles offensively so far as it is, I think the thought can be, man, like these are just going to continue. However, given everything we've talked about, given that Lincoln thinks they're close, which I think the offensive line figure some things out, figure out where they're going, where they're supposed to block. what guys are supposed to be working to, et cetera. The running backs can figure out how to protect a little better. And really, even if you listen to Lincoln this week, I'm talking about, he's finding and always learning how to tweak his offense to what best suits what they have and what they can do well. And I think maybe we can talk about, has this been, and not that Lincoln is just toying out there necessarily, but can you say, has it been a time where he's finding what the offense does well so that, hey, we can go on this run post Texas or right before Texas. And if you look at the trend, it's kind of been like that. Now, one of the things that a lot of people are talking about in the chat right now is the running backs and, why aren't they getting more carries and shouldn't we run more? And I hear that, guys. I really do. For example, Jimmy says Kenny Brooks needs more than 6 carries, and I don't disagree. But again, when we talked about the way the offensive line has looked, I don't think as a play caller, you're going to be very comfortable with calling those plays, knowing that you're just going to continue maybe to lose yards or just maybe get 1 to 2 yards. And obviously we can say, can you stick with it and just boom, boom, boom until something breaks? Or are you going to be like, you know what, we're just going to go away completely and do a bunch of quick passing game? And I think maybe that's where Lincoln's at right now. Obviously, we've always traditionally been a run-heavy offense, no matter what people that don't pay attention on the outside say. Like more than 50% of the time over the years, we've run the football, and that sets up everything. Joe Clapp did an 8-minute segment today. Why? And I don't know if anybody's watched that, but you should. Joe's amazing. I love the stuff he does, but he explained it. He broke it down like you can't put it on spitz rush, especially not last Saturday's game. Like the offensive line did not run block well. At times they did not protect well, and that throws off everything that Lincoln wants to do, right? And so
we usually throw it on run sets, and even with the carries, it's like I think my biggest change to the offensive line or to the run game specifically, if we just kept it super simple, stop running Eric Gray between the tackles, run Kennedy Brooks between the tackles, and get Eric Gray to the outside. Those are the only things I would change. But if you look at our yards per carry, we're picking up good yardage every time we ran the ball. So that's what I found kind of interesting was there just such a lack of confidence in the offensive line where he kind of psyched himself out and said, well, we certainly can't run the ball with the offensive line playing like this, that they ignored, we actually can run the ball because the data says differently. We are actually running the ball fine. So I thought that was interesting as well. I don't know if Kennedy did something to get in the doghouse in practice this week or what, because, man, we didn't see him hardly at all, which is odd. And I found it odd because they were trying to run Eric up the middle, which is just looking at their sizes and whatnot. That's not really more Kennedy's lane. He's so slippery between the tackles, whereas you kind of want to get Eric out in space to where he can hit holes, but he's just shifty. I think, like I said, the numbers would say that we were running the ball fine. So I wonder if he'll take a look at that. And that's really the only change I'd be looking for in the run game.
And again, with the just unbelievable stuff that's continued to happen to the Oklahoma running back room in the last year, we have 2 guys, our good friend. No, he's not a friend. Okay. Bryson on Twitter, right? That guy, he for whatever reason last weekend just decided to pull up one of my tweets from the summer where he had the audacity to say Texas has the best running back room in the nation. And I told him he's nuts for saying that. I never said that they weren't good. I believe Bijan Robinson is the best running back in the nation. I truly believe that. I think he's mini Saquon. I do. But that's not your entire room, and that's what I was explaining to him. I told him, talk about Roshan like he's super nice. I mean, he's a good athlete, but I think he's overrated the way you guys talk about him. Obviously, they got some guys over there. They got Keelan Robinson from Alabama, Jonathan Brooks. I get all that. That's fine, and it's a good running back room. It is. You could say it's maybe top 10. Some people may say top 5. That's fine. But to say unequivocally that it is ridiculous, especially at that point. And even now, you haven't really played anybody. And against Arkansas, you looked bad. So there's no reason to say it. And I said, what I was trying to explain in the ultimate point I'm getting to here is that we have two running backs, really. Now we have Jaden Knowles, and obviously we have Todd Hudson, and they could be serviceable maybe at some point, but obviously we haven't seen them to this point. And you have to think, Trav, if you haven't seen them in the first 4 games, are we going to see them down the stretch? Unless
we haven't seen them in the first 3 really competitive games. We saw a lot of them at West Carolina, obviously.
Right. Well, of course. That's what I'm saying, right? Like if we haven't seen them in the competitive games, because typically you see a lot of, and again, the games have been close. So is that it? Because in past years we've rotated running backs a lot. Mainly even if it wasn't a far away game or we weren't blowing them out. We normally saw at least an RB3 in there. That hasn't really happened. And I wonder.
I think we see more of Braden. I think we see more of Braden and Jeremiah getting carries because they can carry the ball. They're big bodies. We can put them in goal line situations, I feel, or if we just need short yardage pickups. I still think getting Caleb the ball in short yardage situations and run basically what we ran with Jalen, run that same offense. Yeah. I think that would be valuable as well.
And I think we could give, too, some of the guys are talking about this in the chat too. They're talking about, can we get the ball in a Mike Woods' hands and Mario Williams' hands? And not that it has to be like that gadgety all the time, but I would love for us to use Mario Williams in that role. I think he's electric, man. Like,
oh yeah, he's fantastic. Yeah, there's no doubt about it.
He's going to continue to be special. So again, I trust Lincoln. And somebody said this earlier. Lincoln's too good of a schemer for this to continue to just be right. Like, and again, that hinges to, even as good of a schemer as Lincoln is, it hinges on the offensive line. And are they going to be able to get better? Are they going to be able to run block better? Are they going to be able to continue to pass protect? And they pass protected pretty well for the most part. Not amazing, but their pass protection hasn't really been anything to snuff at. That's been the running backs. Now, the run blocking, that's been more the issue. And again, that's why you haven't seen the big play action plays. It's not because they're not giving Rattler enough time. And this is what Joel talked about in his video breakdown. When you're trying to, run these GT counter schemes and fakes or whatnot, and you're not getting linebackers to come downhill, that takes away a lot of your offense, right? It takes away a lot of what you're trying to do to get in that middle section, even some deep shots, because people's eyes are not in the backfield because they're not worried about it. You haven't done anything the whole game. You haven't really done anything besides maybe, if you could say that. But really, what have we done to make people fear our running game so far this year? We can talk about past years where, we average 250, 300 yards a game, right? But where's that element this year and whatnot? So, at the end of the day, I think that is probably what's going to hinge on this weekend's game. If we can get the running game established early, I think that may be a good indicator we're going to put up some points. If we can't, then it may be another slugfest.
Hey, as long as we end up 5-0 next week when we're talking, that's all I care about.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hey, guys, at this point, we're going to open it up for questions. And I know we have a couple that we're going to get to. And actually, as a matter of fact, before you even do the questions, we need to make our score predictions first.
Yep.
So
you're going first.
I'm going first. Man, put me on the spot, Trav. I'm going to say 35-14. And that's big, especially with the games we've seen lately. That's probably pretty far gap. But the reason I'm going with that, I truly believe that we put it together, not all the way, but at least more than we have been this weekend. I think there's probably a week of practice. I think Bill's getting in his guys. I think Lincoln's finally probably going to say, look, here's just what we need to do at this point right now with where we're at. I think he knows the plays maybe that he's going to be able to go with. And again, you can't go 0-3 to Kansas State in 3 years.
No, you cannot.
I refuse to believe
you cannot.
This is going to be a super duper close game. Can it be close at points? Maybe, but I believe the final score is going to be 35-14. Here's what I will say. I think the 14 hinges on whether Skylar Thompson plays or not. If he doesn't play, I'm sticking with the 14 heavy, betting on that heavy. If he does play, then that could fluctuate.
Yeah, I'm going to give two predictions. I got a Skylar prediction that is OU 27, Kansas State 24.
Okay.
So another close win.
Yeah.
If Skylar doesn't play, I think it is Kansas State 10, Oklahoma 31.
Okay. It's a good score. And I think
Yeah.
it hinges on two. Is our defense going to get 3 and outs like they say they want to? And again, I'm not saying that they've been bad. They haven't been bad, but that in that realm, they haven't necessarily delivered. It's been long drives. It's been very much, and Riley talked about it this week. It's been very much bend, and they haven't broken too much, which is a good sign for sure. But can you stop Kansas State from going on 10 to 15 play drives so that OU's offense gets more possessions? Because that's also been a theme of this year. We haven't had a ton of possessions in hardly any games besides Carolina. We haven't really had a ton of possessions. Tulane was probably average, and then you look at Nebraska and West Virginia. We had 8, I think, against Nebraska, and I think we had 9 against West Virginia. Not a ton because they went on drives, right? And so I think we have to look at that, and maybe that could change and fluctuate the games too. Because Riley talked about even last week before West Virginia, if we have a regular type of possession game, I expect us to score 30, right? Even if we're not playing well. And so I think we'll just have to see that, and we'll see if the defense can get an early 3 and out, which to this point, I don't think we've seen that very much this year. Not early in games, not late in games. I think there were a couple of times towards the end of West Virginia. Obviously, they did a good job corralling them most of the game. There were a couple of times towards the end of West Virginia where they would get a first down or 2 first downs, and then they would go 3 straight plays where they didn't get anything, which is good. It's better than nothing. But can we see a quick 3 and out where we get the offensive ball right back? And that's what we all envision, right? That's what
the 31-10 looks like.
Turnover, score, right? That's what we all envision, and what we envision the national championship team being like. At this point, are we a national championship caliber team in play? No. In talent, are we there? You would like to say yes. We'll just have to continue to see where we go. But we're 4-0. We still have the whole season ahead of us. There's no reason to freak out. Let's go into Manhattan this Saturday. Let's pull out a dub, and let's get on to Texas, right? Let's get on. I'm ready.
Absolutely. All right, what questions we got? Let's load them up.
All right. Let's look at that one. Do you think KSU will play clock management offense? I mean, I have to think you would. At this point, most teams that we've played have done that. I don't think you want to. As bad as Oklahoma's offense has been, you still don't want to get in the shootout. We don't want to get in a shootout with Lincoln Riley.
Yeah, you don't want to. The car can still go fast.
Yeah.
Just because they're having trouble getting it in the right gears is one thing. The car is still a fast car. Like it still has the same engine in it. It's just, you just kind of, it's, we're hitting some brakes. It's not all gas. But I think it's a situation where, of course, they will want to. Yeah. But in order to play the time management offense, you have to continue to pick up first downs. Yeah. And that's why I think if it's not Skylar, they'll struggle to pick up first downs, which therein lies the problem with playing a time management offense. You can't eat up clock if you can't pick up first downs.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And so, we'll just have to see where it goes. And if, like we just talked about, OU's defense can kind of scheme for that and get them out often and early, then I think, that nullifies that. But, we don't want another Army type of game, because that was nuts for those of you that weren't there in 2018. Hey, guys, go ahead and continue to ask questions. I know there are some a little bit far back. I'm trying to find them. So if you have another question, just go ahead and put it down. Or if you have one from before, just ask it now so that I can go ahead and put it up. Here's another one from Jimmy Satterfield. Will Wanye Morris start at left tackle? And should Swinton start at right tackle? Wanye Morris, I'd like to see him start at left tackle. We talked about that earlier. No, Swinton should not start at right tackle, because Tyrese Robinson has probably been our best offensive lineman. I don't know if I've had an issue with him I mean, he hasn't been amazing per se. I don't want to say he's been like, oh, he's going to be a first rounder, but he's been consistent. And I don't think the offensive line issues are necessarily coming from the right side too much as it is the left side.
Yeah, the real question in this is about Wanya Morris in the left side, and yes, I think he should start on the left side.
Yeah, five-star guy, and not that Anton Harrison has a ton of talent. Gabe talks about it all the time, but if you're not gonna be out there to do what you need to do, Bill's not gonna put you in there. He's just not. He's not that type of dude, and I think that's why we have to trust Bill, right? I saw somebody say earlier that the O-line is lazy. They're not gonna run block, and we're gonna get not smashed, but we're gonna lose this weekend because of it. And guys, like I just know, like. Bill's not going to put somebody that's lazy. I promise you, he's going to sit whoever that is and whoever they are on their butts, and he's going to say, "Yo, if you can't be in here and play for the University of Oklahoma with the talent we've had come through here at O-line, like obviously we maybe are not like up there with Notre Dame and Wisconsin in terms of how many people we put in like the first round or whatnot, but we have a claim to as a top 5 offensive line school. We're legit." And so,
we got the highest paid right tackle and the highest paid left tackle in the league right now.
Nick Johnson and Trent Williams. So, you're not gonna come here and act like there's too much history here, dog. And Bill's not that type of dude. Y'all know Bill is in a crawl right now, as we speak. So I wouldn't worry about it, in my opinion. I wouldn't worry about it. So there's another question from Richard. Does Riley have a photographic memory, and why he only needs a piece of scratch paper when calling plays?
Yes, he does.
The show he does with Teddy and Why am I not remembering
Toby?
Yeah, Toby.
You said Toby Rowland.
Toby Rowland. Why am I not remembering his name right now?
I don't know, man.
Yeah, Toby Rowland. The brain teachers that he does every week.
Yeah, he's definitely got a photographic memory, and it's just I feel like so much of his stuff is just off of concepts as opposed to full blown plays. Like it's almost like a subscreen, like, hey, we're going to be in this. And he doesn't need the full blown big sheet of paper because they all kind of, start out of the same run sets that he wants to run. Our GT pull is probably half the card. But yeah, he runs a lot of the same stuff out of the same sets. So I think it simplifies what he needs to actually hold on him at the time.
Yeah, I agree. Will Rudy return?
Yes.
Is he back? I didn't see.
He's not back yet, but yes, he will return, and it's not just because he said please.
Yeah, at some point he's definitely returning. I didn't think it was this week. I know Danny Stutzman. They said maybe he's close. No, they said D2I.
I think he's going to play.
It was more precautionary than anything. D2I is fine. And obviously Cody Jackson. I know somebody asked about him earlier. He's the word is he has mono. I know he has an illness that had him in the hospital. So we'll just have to see what happens with that, and hopefully he's going to be okay. And even with that, having something like that, that's what it is. Like that can take you out for a little bit, and you got to build your strength back up. I mean, you think of what happened to Austin Starkner last year, and obviously not that those are mutually exclusive, but just think of it like he lost 25, 30 pounds.
A lot.
So he wasn't going to be able to, even though he was better, he wasn't going to be able to come back right then. It was going to be a weekly, maybe 2-3 weeks. And
especially with corner, you don't want a situation where your corner isn't 100%. I guess I was still talking about Woody.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was still thinking about Woody as far as waiting to come back 100%. But go ahead. We got something up next?
Yeah. When do you think Theo Weiss will play?
Bowl game.
Is it that late? Is he out that long?
Yeah.
Man. Jeez.
Yeah, but maybe Big 12 championship, but he's gonna be out.
That sucks. I did not know. I thought maybe like Iowa State, something like that, but man,
no.
That stinks to hear that. Will Justin Harrington get some playing time? I know that a lot of people, Justin Harrington seems like this mythical figure that
right.
lore there. We talk about he's 6'4", he's got all the measurables, and I'm not saying that he's not good or anything like that, but I have to think that if Alex Grinch felt like he could be out there and want him out there, he would be, and that he's not
Yeah.
just really holding him back. So,
yeah, I mean, I don't think he's high enough up on the depth chart to really crack into it unless he makes some mid-season jump. We'll see. I mean, I'd like him to get some time
yeah,
eventually, just because. I mean, I think maybe we see him against Iowa State or somebody that uses big tight ends, and a lot of them, and you need big bodies to stop them. I think that's the situation where you might see him kind of spell some of the Billy Bowman minutes and stuff like that, because Billy's not a big guy. He's a playmaker and he's a stud, but he's not a big guy. And so I think that's where you might see him a little bit, is situational, where we can use his talents.
Yeah. All right, guys. About 3 more questions here, and then we'll get going so Trav can go home, close up, do what he needs to do, and I can get to bed because I got to deal with bad little kids in the morning. All right. Do you think the linebacker play has been the same, better, or worse than expected? And Richard, I know you're asking specifically. I saw it earlier because I had a linebacker preview, Trav, earlier in the channel, and I thought the linebacker core was the weakest on the defense. And I'm not saying that that's fleshed out. You look at the names, I don't think it should be at all. Have they played up to what I thought they would play? I think they play a little better maybe than I gave them credit for initially. I'm not going to say they played amazing. I think there's been, some busts here or there. I'd like to see more from Brian Asamoah. Deshaun White has played well the last 2 games. I was not pleased with him the first couple. Played well the last 2 games. One name I will say that I'm shocked we haven't heard more from is David Ugwebu. I was expecting a little more from him, and there's still time. It's the 4th game, so I'm not worried about it at all. But that's what I would have to say. Trav, what do you think?
I think it's an interesting question, because I think simply the emergence of Danny Stutzman would push me over to the yes, they've played well side. So yes, I do think he finds himself in a starting role by the end of the season. I'm not sure. I'm not going to call what week it is, or he's coming back off an injury and now he's all of a sudden a starter, I think. But that's just not a guy to keep off the field very long, So I think simply his emergence would push me over into they're playing well, side of things. Because when you can have a guy that's probably an eventual first rounder come out, and kind of, bloom right in front of you, then I say that's good for the position group.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there danger in us playing up tempo? I ask because when we have played with urgency, the offense looks like it really clicked. Like the offensive line even haven't had time to overthink their assignments. Yeah, I think there's maybe some truth to that, and obviously we talk about, is it positive to go up tempo because of maybe what it does to the defense and getting them back out there, and the up tempo we go is a little bit air raidish, which again is in Lincoln Riley's repertoire. But I think, Trav, that with the weapons we have, I don't see a problem with it. I know Lincoln said that it's not sustainable, and I don't think that it is. However, can you go to it on specific series maybe? Yeah, and even if we look at what happened at the end of the West Virginia game, and even going deeper into that, the mettle that Spencer had to have, the balls he had to go out there after being booed, and you're at your own 8-yard line with 3:30 left, and you drive down the field, right, and you make the throws you need to make. I think I said 9 for 9 on Twitter, but I think
throws.
It was for 6, if I'm not mistaken. I've seen that. There's some discrepancy. Whatever. Anyways, he was perfect on the drive as far as
one, and something you have to think of on this up tempo stuff is what kind of defense are we looking at, right?
Yeah.
So that up tempo stuff, it can't often you aren't going to run a lot of deep routes off it, because obviously if you send a guy 50 yards down the field and you're trying to run up tempo, and that guy's got to come back, you got to wait for him to come back. You don't want him to sprint back 50 yards. Now he's gassed to run the next
to run the next play. You don't want to run it off the field to substitute because then they can substitute. You keep everything short. So it's a situation where, it's what the defense gives you. If they want to keep everything in front of you and you go up tempo and all they're doing is trying to keep things in front of you, then you might play into their hand because that's what they want you to do. So you have to be careful with that. It's not as simple of an answer of just, oh, well, just play faster because that's what happened on the last series of the game. This, that, or the other. You have to go within the flow of the game. You have to. I know everybody's like, well, you can't just take what the defense gives you. You have to, establish, your own will, like enforce your will on them. But it's not like that. You have to take what they give you. If they're giving you open underneath stuff, then have Mike Woods going on a shallow cross and see if he can make a man miss. Have Mario Williams go on a shallow cross, see if he can make a man miss. With that kind of stuff, you can play into what the defense gives you and have success, but it might not always look as simple as, do we just need to snap the ball faster?
Yeah. No, I agree. And that's the thing, like, at the end of the day, I think Lincoln's going to find a way to get the ball in his playmaker's hands. He always has. I think back to CeeDee Lamb, his last year with Jalen Hurts, and I mean, just how much Lincoln used him in motion and put him in different spots on the field to be successful. And obviously, CeeDee was a clear alpha, and we talked about earlier. You mentioned we have a lot of guys that maybe nobody's stepped up and said, oh, okay, who's actually the alpha? But we have a Jaden Hazelwood, we have a Marvin Mims, we have a Mike Woods, we have a Mario Williams. Like, just the names, man, like they pop off the page. And so I think Lincoln figuring out, hey, can we maybe go to this guy here, or going with the hot hand like we often had in the past, like we often have in the past with the running backs we've had. Because, you look at the running back talent we've had going back to, Lincoln's early years with Joe Mixon and Samaje Perine. Like, he had both of them in there sometimes. Sometimes he rode the hot hand. Some people are arguing, is Samaje actually better than Joe? Not necessarily. Obviously, Joe is the more talented of the two. However, Samaje also is the leading rusher in Oklahoma history. And so, like, when you have people that are talented, you find ways to use them. You find ways to go with the hot hand. I think Lincoln's going to be able to do that. If not now, I think eventually as the year goes on. All right, last question. It's going to be a fun one. Who has the best ribs in Norman? Trav, you're going to have to answer that one because I haven't been to Norman in a couple months, and I've only been twice in the last 8 years. So I don't know.
I'm going in the Norman Metro. I'm going to Clark Crew Barbecue, Oklahoma City. So Clark Crew Barbecue actually started because a world champion started all of them. But he started just in the competition circuit. He won, I believe he won the Jack, which is a world championship that's in Lynchburg, Tennessee at Jack Daniels facility. And I believe he grand championed the Royal as well, which the American Royal is in the Kansas Motor Speedway. That's where we developed our tomahawk.
Oh, wow.
He serves Wagyu brisket at the restaurant. He's ridiculous. So I would say if you're in the area, you could probably make to Oklahoma City for some good ribs. Check out Clark Crew Barbecue.
Yeah, that's dope. Yeah, Clark Crew. That's what you said? Clark Crew.
Clark Crew, yep.
Clark Crew. I'm going to have to make it down that way when I get down there then. Well, y'all,
Absolutely.
I know some of you guys are wanting to talk about Texas already in the chat. We're going to say that for next week because, yes, next week will be Texas week. But
tune in next week.
Kansas State first. We're not going to overlook them. We got some revenge on our minds. We're heading up to Manhattan, looking for a dub. And hopefully Trav will be back here in a week talking about a renaissance performance, hopefully by the Oklahoma offense and offensive line, and that the defense has just continued to progress. Trav, you got anything, man, before we head out?
No, I appreciate you having me as always. I'm really looking forward to these Wednesday chats that we got going on. I appreciate everybody that's following along and listening with us, asking questions. Engagement makes this so much more fun, so much more fun. So, I mean, JP and I could just call each other and talk about OU football, but it's really you guys just asking questions, making us think outside the box.
making us consider things we hadn't considered before. So we do really appreciate that. Ask as many questions as you can. We'll try and get it formatted maybe where we can really knock out a full-blown question at the end. So make sure in the future, write those questions down, type them up, anything like that. Just save them to the end. We'll get them all knocked out, kind of lightning round style, if you will. So, but no, appreciate you having me on. Let's go up to the Little Apple and kick some ass. And we'll be back here next week for Texas.
Yes, sir. Always. And like Trav couldn't have said it better. We thank you guys for joining us, man. And we have over double. At one point, I think we may have had even triple more than what we had last week. And so, tell your friends if you guys have enjoyed it, and enjoy what we're doing. Tell them to come and just let's make this big, man. Let's engage. Love to definitely continue to do this. It's going to be fun. It's already been fun for sure. So, hey, let's go get a dub. And then it'll be Texas Hate Week when we're ready. But you guys make sure that you subscribe to the Indie Sooner channel so that when these things do pop off every Wednesday, you'll know what time. I don't think we're going to be changing the time. I know we've had people talk about it. Maybe it'll be easier. I don't know. We'll talk about it. We'll let you know for sure. But again, subscribe to the channel so you can know about changes. Make sure you follow Travis at Travis Skull on Twitter. Right there, it's in his little name box. I'm at Indy_Sooner on Twitter, at Indy_Sooner. Also, I'm gonna drop it in there real quick. If you didn't see it, I am about to be a father, so I'm happy about that. We're excited, man. God has blessed us. And I know a lot of you guys in the chat have been talking about that and waiting for me to say it when you're gonna say it. But I'm gonna be a dad. I'm excited about that, man, and couldn't be happier. So hopefully things go well and continue to go well, and we'll have a little baby JP up in here in April. So
that's right, JP Jr. in the house.
Yes, sir. All right, y'all. We love y'all. We appreciate y'all. Till next time.
Absolutely. Boomer.